Still to this day, when you mention the name Baltimore Colts, two of the NFL's most prominent figures come to mind, Johnny Unitas and Don Shula. In 4 of their 7 seasons together, the Colts averaged a little more than 1 loss per season, but unknown to the press and fans, the two men had a very difficult and bitter relationship that would last the rest of their lives. Joining me now with more about this turbulent relationship is Jack Gilden, author of Collision of Wills, Johnny Unitas, Don Shula, and the Rise of the Modern NFL. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So happy to have you here. This is a fascinating book. Tell me, why did you decide to write it?
Well, when I was about 15 years old, I went to a journalism conference at the Colts facility. They'd just moved to Owings Mills. I went to Owings Mills High School, and John Stedman, the legendary Baltimore sports writer, happened to mention that Don Shula and Johnny Unitas had hated each other. And I thought to myself, at the age of 15, that would make a great book someday.
And so when you're writing this book and you're researching it, did you get to the crux of it? Did you find out why?
Yeah, everybody, including me, was hoping that there was some sort of silver bullet reason. Yeah. And, you know, and what is it usually between men? It's a woman, it's money, it's power, you know, and with Johnny U and Don Shula, I think it was much more complex than that. And it went back to the days when they were both teammates on the Colts and competing against each other every single day in practice.
So it wasn't any of those things. Look at me, I'm looking for the juicy nugget in there. I want the soap opera.
Well, it actually is it is a juicy nugget, and it is a soap opera because it goes on so long. It went on for like 15 years or something like that, and the bitterness after they parted ways was very intense.
Wow, and so how did that bitterness affect the rest of the team?
Well, I think it had affected them in both positive and negative ways because the Colts won in an unprecedented way. Like, you think today of the greatest team being New England and Belichick and Brady, and they've gone to many championship games and they win a lot. The Colts averaged something like 1 or 2 losses per year for 4 straight years. And so they really, that anger between them really fueled, you know, greatness, but they couldn't win the championship together. Yeah. And in fact, they were upset in two championship games where they were highly favored.
And so with this, you know, I think about the press at the time, they had to have known that there was this bitter relationship. Why do you think they didn't disclose what was going on?
One of the things I learned was that there was a very interesting dynamic in the press itself. So there were some reporters that were very close to the team, like the beat reporter or certain columnists, like I mentioned, John Stedman. And then there were others that were a little, you know, further back. The ones that were close to the team knew about things like this, but, you know, they insulated certain things. Right. You know, like you hear about President Kennedy and how the press wouldn't talk about certain things about him. Well, this is that same era. They didn't mention these things. And then the ones that were further back, they didn't know these intimate details.
Oh, got it. So they were insulated basically almost by not design, but just circumstance. Yeah,
and by design too. The Colts were a very put together franchise. They might have been the very finest sports franchise ever put together. And their PR machine was very adept at things like this.
Well, I find this fascinating. Was there anything as you are researching this that surprised you as well?
Yeah, the fact that, that nobody had ever told this story before. You're talking about 2 of the most famous men in the history of football. They played a huge role in shaping the game forevermore. Yeah. But and there was this biting animus between them, but nobody knew.
Well, we've got to check this book out. Collision of Wills, Johnny Unitas, Don Shula, and the Rise of Modern NFL is available for preview orders online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and selected bookstores. Jack, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Glad you're local. And we'll be right back with more Midday Maryland right after this. Stay tuned.